Hello, welcome to VR Roundtable, episode 125. My name's Gary, and joining me is Anthony, Steve, and Chris. We're here to talk about VR for the next hour and a half or so. And this week, we're mainly going to be focusing on things like, well, games, really. We've got a lot of games to talk about and go through, but also just a little bit of news about the breaking impressions of the Valve Index from sort of media outlets and the developers as well this week. So it should be a pretty good show. But before we get into that, let's very briefly pass it round to everybody. Chris, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. Finally starting some development on Quest, and it's been a fun ride to see how that all works, because there's really no documentation unless you're an approved developer, so you just kind of got to wing it with the Go documentation and call it a day, but it's been going good.
So they won't even give you the documentation until you're approved?
Not really.
Oh,
it's just all Go specific stuff, but it kind of works for Quest too, so it's fine. But yeah, it's a little bad.
Yeah. So Steve, what about you? What have you been up to this past week?
Nothing much. Playing some games. I haven't even really played the Quest much. Oh no, I haven't played the Quest much. But I have played all the good other titles that have come to VR headsets not named Quest. So that's where I've been focused. And I fell down the stairs, y'all. Yesterday, and I'm still kind of sore. Like we have hardwood steps, and I had some nice new socks, and the heel of my foot just kind of hit the bull nose of the step. It was the second step from the top, and all the way down. So I'm a little sore. So I think I'm gonna stay to seated experiences for the next few days.
Oh no, we shouldn't laugh. But this past week as well, I took my kids to the trampoline park with my wife. We went out to this trampoline park. Before we went there, so it's called Flip Out in Leicester. And before we went there, I knew I was going to come away with an injury. It was just inevitable. But we were there for literally 1 minute. My wife checked her watch, and we were on the trampolines for 1 minute. I thought, I might be one for over exaggerating, but I thought I'd broke my ankle. Turns out I hadn't broke my ankle. It was just badly bruised, and it was absolute agony. But my wife thought I was joking when I came across and said I've just injured myself. She thought I was joking because it was that inevitable that it was going to happen. So we've both had injuries this week, Steve. That's why we've been playing a little bit more seated. Anthony, how about you? Any injuries to your end at all?
My ego has been injured. No, I don't know. But no, the reverb, man, the reverb. So I was waiting all week long for the reverb, constantly refreshing. I mean, not constantly, but like several times a day, checking the HP website for reverb, when is it going to arrive? Because I want to order one. I want to just take a chance on it, roll the dice. And I kind of look at it as like a $200 rolling of the dice, basically, and because I'll just sell it, if I don't like it, I'll sell it and I'll take a bit of a loss, but it gives me an opportunity to take a look at it. And so yesterday I was doing a stream. I had no idea that the reverb all of a sudden came available, and people are like, oh, the reverb's available. But I was already doing my show, and I'm like, oh, damn it, what am I going to do? Because like for me to order it, it would take some time. And so I was like, I'll just do my show. When my show is over, I'll immediately order the reverb. And the reverb sold out during my show. Oh my God, it hurt so bad. But other than that, not much.
Yeah, I saw, because earlier on in the week, they became available over here in the UK. We could order some. And obviously, I've got the Index on order, and I don't want to purchase any more stuff. But I was thinking of you, Anthony, because I expected them to go up like any day over in the US as well. So yeah, I caught that show where you did that after it went out. But yeah, I could sense the disappointment.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get on to the first thing we want to talk about this week, which is so this past week on the 29th, we heard a couple of weeks ago, really, that from a leak from a developer that the embargo for the Valve Index was going to be up on the 29th of May. And so everybody was sort of looking forward to this for some further, more in-depth impressions on the Valve Index on that day. It actually broke like the day before, really, for media outlets. So videos from Tested, Polygon, and also articles on Upload VR went up on the 28th, and then the day after we got some more impressions of the Valve Index from developers, so Cloudhead Games, and also the developer of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. He posted quite an in-depth video as well. So this was all really interesting, obviously for people that pre-ordered, but also for people that are interested in the index and interested in pre-ordering one as well, because we're getting more in-depth impressions from all of these outlets. So I won't go through everything on this list that we've got down here. I'll pass it over to somebody, and then we can sort of just go through some of the highlights for some of the things that came out of this and sort of take it from there, really. So, Chris, I don't know which videos you saw, which articles you read, but is there any sort of standout sort of notes or anything like that that you see on the Valve Index?
I haven't seen most of these articles, but I did watch the Tested video because, Tested does a really good job with this kind of stuff. And a couple of things to note for me. One is it sounds like still the God rays are pretty bad and pretty first gen stuff, which sucks a little bit because everything else seems really Gen 2 about this headset. So it sucks they couldn't get the optics right on that. Like you wonder why they went to these dual optics if they couldn't figure out God rays kind of thing. But also just in the back of my head, because I didn't order a Valve Index, I probably should have, because like the more impressions I see about this thing, I'm like, oh man, I want to feel more present in VR. Like I want it to feel more real. And I think, it makes a lot of sense because like my friend has a 144 hertz monitor over there. If I see him playing a game, like it looks a lot more realistic and true to life. So I could just imagine that kind of frame rate on your like entire field of view in VR. I feel like that would be a huge difference. So I think the highlight on kind of all these articles is that you just feel more present in VR, and I think that's super duper cool. I can't imagine how that feels because we've always just had 90 or now I'm running on 80 hertz. So, to imagine 144, I bet that's a really big step up. So yeah, those are the things that stood out to me about that. It makes me a little jealous.
Yeah, I think the overwhelming thing from all of these they're not reviews, they're just further deeper impressions, is
not reviews.
Not reviews, definitely not. Or the fact that they're all overwhelmingly positive, and the main thing that sticks out to me, being somebody that is really not a fan of God rays, nobody's a fan of God rays, but they affect me in the game that I really like, which is Elite Dangerous. So that one thing is really disappointing to me, but overall, everything else seems pretty positive from all that we're reading and seeing on these videos. Anthony, is there anything on here that you see that stuck out to you at all?
Yeah, well, the number one thing that sticks out to me is, like you said, everybody is positive, but also they all have complaints about little things here and there. And you talked about the God rays, and some people are like, the God rays are almost non-existent, and then other people are like, the God rays are basically exactly the same as the original Vive. And then one outlet says, oh, the sweet spot is huge. Another outlet says the sweet spot is really reduced. So I think I'm starting to come to this conclusion, and I guess I probably should have came to this conclusion years ago, is when it comes to these VR headsets, they are so personal. All these VR heads, like they fit. Again, it goes back to one size does not fit all. People have different heads, different eye boxes, like their brows, their cheekbones, all of these things are different. And some people say, oh, this is the most comfortable headset I've ever had. Other people say this is the most uncomfortable headset I've ever had. So I think we're actually doing ourselves a disservice to simply look at a review on YouTube or whatever, or a written review and think that applies to everyone on planet Earth. And the thing that sucks about it is there's no solution to this, because you can't go down to the local VR HMD store, where you can try every VR HMD. Those things don't exist. It would kind of be cool. We do have like VR arcades in a lot of major cities. It'd be cool if some of these VR arcades almost like specialized a little bit in like trying out these different headsets, where not where you're just going to try to play a VR arcade arcade game, you want to play raw data, but you just want to try out this headset or that headset, because where are you going to get your hands on it? Nobody wants to order a headset and have to ship it back. It's a real pain in the neck to do that. So my biggest takeaway is you really need to get these things yourself, is kind of my takeaway.
Yeah, just a quick comment as well from Elevated. Sounds like centering on the lens on your eyes, in the middle of the lenses, and the tilt of the headset impacts how bad the God rays are. And that was something that I read as well in one of these on some forum or something like that. So the tilt of the headset itself might affect things. I don't know if that's, again, going back to Anthony's point, I suppose we'd all have to try that. But just quickly before I pass it over to Steve, just going through some of these contradictions on the impressions. So Jeremy and Norman tested, they tried this for a week, and they said that the sweet spot itself was relatively small, but once it was dialed in, you could then look around a little bit, because I suppose the lenses themselves, once you've got it dialed in, are so close to your eyes maybe, but also they were mentioning the God rays. This is something that Norm didn't mention in his original impressions on the Valve Index, but they did say that the God rays are not great on this. I think they made sort of comparisons to the original Vive, but contradicting that, Upload VR, Ian Hamilton at Upload VR, he said that it was the widest sweet spot, and also the God rays were dramatically reduced compared to the pre-2019 VR HMDs. So yeah. Again, I suppose it goes back to what Anthony was saying just then. We all need to try these. There's a lot of things that are up in the air, and everybody's impressions on this device will vary, I suppose. But Steve, is there anything that you stuck out to you on all of these impressions?
Well, responding quickly to the point you just made, Ian Hamilton saying that he felt the God rays were dramatically reduced compared to pre-2019 HMDs. That to me is a way of saying it's the Rift S is better in terms of God rays. And I guess that's fair, but part of me is really concerned about the God rays. I have an Index on order. I'm getting one. I will try it. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. But I am concerned about these God rays, and I feel like on a $1,000 package or $750 if you don't need the base stations package, that I shouldn't be able to look towards the Rift S and say that the Rift S does anything in the realm of lenses better than the Valve Index. And at this point, I think the Rift S is going to have better. It seems like it's going to have better until I put my face in it and able to test for myself. Seems like it's going to have better God rays, and that's a bit of a bummer. Talking about sweet spot though, I've learned a whole lot over the last 5-ish months, with the Pimax, that there are sort of two modes of thought when it comes to sweet spot. Our initial, going back to 2016, we just kind of said, shove your face in a VR headset and how big is the clear point? And that's the sweet spot. What I've learned with the Pimax, and it may be true here with the Index, is that there's sort of a positional sweet spot on your head, not just the IPD between your pupils, but the up, the down, the left, the right, all of that. Getting it into the correct positional sweet spot, if your face is compatible with the perfect sweet spot, may drastically reduce those God rays, and can explain why Ian thinks that they're dramatically reduced, whereas Norm and Jeremy feel like it's more closer to an OG Vive. That being said, Norm and Jeremy were also very clear to point out the consistency with Valve and say the Vive was basically a Valve headset. Yes, HTC built it and sold it, but it was pretty much Valve's engineering baby. So that suggests to me that there may be some lens continuity. We know they went to the double stack lenses, and it's not, just a carbon copy Vive lens, but in terms of their supply chain and the way they've done their engineering and the design, they may be bringing over Vive isms when it comes to the lenses, and that'll be a bit of a bummer. Now, I'm sorry, that was just responding to everything you said. The thing that stood out to me in a positive way, though, was the audio. Like, I was concerned after being really frustrated with the Oculus Quest and the Rift S piss poor audio solution, I was concerned with Valve. I'm like, why change up what works? You know, headphones work. We know they work fine. Most people don't complain about them. Why do these HMD makers feel the need to mess with a formula that for the most part is working? And Valve did, but it sounds like just about every preview or impressions that I watched and or read, that everyone agrees that the audio solution isn't actually a good one. So that makes me optimistic, like, because I was kind of concerned about audio as well.
Although the Ars Technica guy, like most people did rave about the audio, and most people said that it goes really loud, like they're surprised how loud it goes, and people were saying that outside noises don't really bleed in because it's really loud, and but you can bear, like if somebody wants to yell at you, you can kind of hear them. But then I was reading I'm pretty sure it was the Ars Technica guy, and he's like, I can't get the volume to go loud enough, and noises are interfering noises. So it's contradiction, dude, contradiction city. For every person that says this is great, there's another person that says it isn't. I mean, the one takeaway we can get from all these comments is, look, almost everybody was heaping a ton of praise on this HMD, and they're basically saying, for all intents and purposes, right now, this is the leader. This is the clubhouse leader. This is the HMD to beat for now. There's going to be nitpicks always. Well, at least for the next 10 years, I think we're always going to have little nitpicking. It's going to be compromising. It's going to be trade-offs. But yeah, I mean, I've heard multiple stories, and you know me, Steve, I live in the hood. We got freaking helicopters flying around, Rottweilers barking. I got to deal with outside noises, so I'll have to see what happens here.
Go ahead, Chris. Go.
Okay, I was just gonna say, like, you know, it could be individual people, or it also could just be the fact that maybe like each HMDs, like the lenses are a little different. Maybe their supply chain isn't as consistent as it should be yet. Who knows? Because I know with the CV1 back in the day, you know, some people would be like, I have terrible God rays. Some people would be like, I don't have any. And like, you know, I've probably put on like 6 riffs because we're developing a game for Oculus, and they are very different. Like if you look at different CV1s, there's some that have a lot of God rays and some that have not too bad. So I'm wondering if that's kind of what's happening here. Maybe some people are just getting bad units. So we'll have to see, I guess.
I think that's a good point, because I've tried a couple of riffs, about 3 riffs altogether, and there was one in particular where one of the screens just had a lot more Mura than the other screen. Not necessarily like any worse God rays or anything like that, but that was like really jarring, and I didn't experience that in my CV1 when I had that. But just going back to some of these impressions, when people get onto the sort of the increased presence in VR, which is really interesting to me, like Tested, they got onto this, and also the PC World Review, Hayden Dingman, he said that like things like the increased field of view make the headset feel less claustrophobic, which I can understand, but this fact of like more present, more immersion based on the higher frame rates is really interesting, because we've not really experienced that in any true way. We've experienced it in a kind of way with the PSVR, but not really. It's not really doing the same thing that the Valve Index is doing, even though that display has the 120 hertz refresh rate. So I'm really interested. The refresh rate and the frame rate is something that I can't wait to give a try on this. And Tested, Jeremy and Norm did say that like 1080 cards, NVIDIA 1080s will struggle with the 144 hertz, which is understandable. I don't think anybody would question that. And I think even if you get like a 2080 Ti, you're still going to struggle with 144 hertz in a lot of games, really. There will obviously be some that will benefit from that. But has anybody got any thoughts on the refresh rate?
Well, I have a question for you, Gary. Which card do you have right now?
1080 Ti.
1080 Ti. Okay, so you're getting this Valve Index. I imagine you want to run a lot of stuff at 144 hertz if you could, because that's kind of the secret sauce, right? That's what you want to experience. So what do you think's going to happen? Are you going to have this, like, are you just going to like play a lot of stuff at 120 hertz and you're just going to deal with reprojection? Are you going to buy a new card? Are you going to try to wait for an even newer card? Because like you said, a 2080 Ti, that might not even really be strong enough. When's the next wave of video cards coming? I know AMD has like a new card that's going to compete maybe with like the 2070 or something.
Yeah, I don't think we've heard about Nvidia's new cards, but the AMD ones, I believe that they've been announced and sort of ready to come out. I don't know the time frame on that either, but I mean, I think I'm in terms of graphics cards, I'm sticking with Nvidia for now anyway. But I'm going to wait for the next generation. So basically, in my position, this year was buying all of these VR headsets, and that's where my money's gone this year. I'm going to sort of muddle my way through on the 1080 Ti for now, and then when the next generation comes out next year, that will probably be when I'll upgrade my graphics card.
And NVIDIA is under no pressure from their primary competition to speed up any kind of product delivery. So I'd imagine they drag their feet some until they have to release a new generation, honestly. Regarding the performance, though, like 144 hertz is more than a 50% performance demand increase from 90 hertz. That's 55 more hertz or 54 more hertz. That's a sizable step. And I think for most people that if you're rocking a 1080, you're going to have to keep settings on low for a lot of apps. You sure as shit aren't going to be doing any Fallout 4 at 144 hertz. But like some games, maybe something like Job Simulator or Beat Saber, that'll run fine maybe at 144 hertz. Like you have to, a lot of VR games, and that's, I think I mentioned it last week, some of the magic sauce with the Quest is that a lot of VR games didn't need the specs that we were all saying that PC VR needed. It doesn't take a 1080 Ti to play Beat Saber. And so if you have a 1080 Ti, you already have headroom. So it's where do you spend your headroom? Do you spend it on super sampling or do you spend it on increased frame rates? And that'll be the one of the really interesting things. And then some games you'll have to dumb it down. You'll be like, hey, I'm going to play a really loaded down modded Skyrim. And just say, hey, when I play this, I can't do it at 144 hertz. I have to set it to 120 or maybe 90 or whatever. So I think that'll be interesting. And for you, Anthony, I know you haven't explored super sampling. You don't like going in and fiddling with settings. You're going to have to on the index. Like you're not going to be able to set it on 144 hertz and then leave it. So I better warm up your familiarity thumbing through the Steam VR settings and start making home.
I'm looking forward to like the Valve Index subreddit. Well, see, I'm going to be waiting on my index anyways, so I'm going to have to live vicariously through everybody else. But one of the things that I'm hoping is like the Valve Index subreddit. I got to imagine there's going to be a number of people that they have a video card, they have a CPU and a RAM, whatever their primary specs are, and then they're going to go and try as many games as humanly possible at 144 hertz. And they're going to try to report. And I think we're eventually going to get a list of games that are 144 hertz friendly, and then that's going to be beautiful. And actually, one question I have for anybody that's getting a Valve Index, maybe in the past you would never revisit games that you played a long time ago, but when you get this Valve Index and the 144 hertz, is there a part of you that maybe wants to go back and revisit some of these older games from 2016 and stuff, just to see them in a new kind of a light with this 144 hertz, this new presence, and then also they might run a lot smoother? Do you think you'll dabble in your back library at all, or will it just be for like 5 minutes to see what it looks like, and that will be pretty much it?
It depends how good it feels at that, I suppose. But yeah, I'm definitely going back into a lot of old games. That's the thing. Whenever you get a new HMD or a new graphics card, you want to go back in and try the things you've already tried in order to do a comparison to them. And an interesting comment that Girillo put on here as well. He said, you guys should go watch the Climby Dev use the index and talk about it. He said, even if you can't hit those frames, everything still feels better in the HMD because you can go 60 times 2 instead of 45 times 2. So yeah, that's an interesting point. Like the reprojection and that kind of stuff, you've got more options, both the 120 hertz and the 144 hertz with that.
I was gonna just say that because I'm glad he brought it up, because that is a thing. I've experimented playing Elite Dangerous at 72 hertz on the Pimax because it lets me crank up some fidelity, and it's better to be at 72 hertz native than it is to be at 90 hertz and then 45 hertz reprojected. So 72 hertz native feels better, at least to me, in a game like that, because you're not walking, you're not moving around. You're in a cockpit. So there will be benefits towards maybe running at 144 hertz and letting it reproject down to 72 and then double it, because that may be a good trade-off against 90 and not having to fiddle with settings some. But there's a lot to be sort of to settle out to really learn how all this is going to work and where most people are going to settle. And I do think the Valve Index subreddit will start creating like Google document spreadsheets that say these all games run good. Like, you know, the communities have a way of building matrices and stuff of data so that people will be able to go and say, oh, this game runs good at 144 hertz on a 1080 or whatever. And yeah, I think that'll be part of the fun.
Yeah, like using Rift S, it's kind of difficult when you can really notice it reprojects even more because it's really only running at 40 FPS. That's pretty low. I mean, that's, you know, nearing like TV movie levels low. So it's cool to see that. You know, I feel like if I ever got an Index, I'd probably stick with this card for a little bit and run it in that way just to see how that looks. So I like that they have options. They even have 80 hertz if you want to pretend you have a Rift S for your Index.
You know what we didn't mention?
So everybody can do the comparisons with their competition. This is what it feels like at 80 hertz if I had a Rift S, and this is what it feels like at 144.
One thing we didn't mention is that I guess some of the Valve technicians have kind of insinuated that like people were asking them like about the Oculus Quest, like, have you guys tried the Oculus Quest, have you tried the Rift S? And I think there was like one quote somewhere in somebody's breakdown where the guy was like, yeah, I don't really play VR for 30 minutes, I play VR for hours. And the difference with the Valve Index is that you can play VR for hours in the Valve Index and you don't feel the kind of fatigue or comfort kind of issues that you feel with in a lot of these other headsets. I absolutely adore the Oculus Quest. I love it. I absolutely love it. However, straight up, I use that thing for 40 minutes. It doesn't matter. I've tried every way that you can fidget with that thing humanly possible. I can use it for 40 minutes and then I gotta stop. The comfort just isn't there. And it's not gonna kill it, because I know someone's gonna come out with a special comfort thing and I'll just completely rechange it. But that's something we got to consider here, although it's not very marketable, because you think about people that go to GDC, they go to PAX East, they go to these different demos. It's like a quick 15-minute demo. And that's why so many games and things look so impressive, because you're doing it for 10 minutes. There's not enough time for any of the comfort issues to ever affect you, you know, and it's really the hardcore diehard players that are playing for hours on a regular basis. I think they're going to experience this new level of comfort. And one other quick thing is, like, do you guys realize how heavy this thing is? It's like damn near 900 grams. It's like 800 and something grams, which I just found out this yesterday. I was reading somebody's article and it was like 862 grams or whatever the heck it was. And I was thinking, oh my God, the Quest is 588 grams and it feels like a freaking dumbbell is on my head. And now this thing is damn near 900 grams, but it's the balancing. It's the way they did the balancing, because a lot of people are saying this is the most comfortable headset ever, even though it's ridiculously heavy. But once you get it on your head and you get it situated properly, it's comfort city.
Have you just on the comfort, the Quest, because I agree, like just I think the comfort is one of the biggest problems on the Quest for long periods of time, because I get issues and my wife gets issues with the comfort level. Have you tried like a counterweight on the back? Because that really does make a pretty big difference in terms of comfort. It doesn't eliminate it. It's never going to be like completely comfortable, but it does definitely help.
I've heard about that. Like somebody says, take a battery and like attach a battery to the back. And I just think I'm gonna be feeling this battery banging on my head. I'm just gonna wait. I know there's gotta be a company out there. See, what I want is a deluxe audio strap type of thing that is very specifically designed for the Quest that gives you much counterbalance in the back in terms of weight, and then also provides an audio solution. Now the downside is it's not going to be as portable as it used to be. Like you could take your Quest now and you can kind of stuff it in a relatively small bag. And so if you attach this big deluxe audio strap comfort thing, now it's going to be this permanently big thing that you're not going to be able to pack into a small bag. But I'm okay with that. That's what I'm going to have to do. So I'm just going to wait around. And the other thing I'll say too is I'm not necessarily going to run out and buy the first one, because there's always a scramble. You know what I mean? Like I know there's companies right now that are scrambling, and they're like, we got to hurry up and get one of the, and so they scramble and they rush it. I don't want a rush job. So I might not necessarily buy the first comfort thing that comes down the pipe.
Yeah, I saw someone literally just ripped off the old thing and put on a Vive Deluxe audio strap. I was like, man, I have a Vive Deluxe audio strap. Maybe I should do that, but I don't want to like completely destroy the Quest. But it's tempting because that is really a nice design. Like you can, no matter how heavy the HMD is, as long as you have that kind of ratcheting design, it seems to work pretty well. So that's, why the Index, I bet, is so comfortable.
Yeah. Okay, well, has anybody got anything else they want to mention on the Index impressions before we move on? Okay, well, let's get on to the next thing. So, Steve, you've listed some giveaways here. I don't know when you want to go about doing that.
I will sprinkle them in chat, so don't want to call too much attention to it in terms of of our friends listening on the audio podcast. So I'm not going to read out any numbers, but I'll sprinkle them in chat throughout the rest of the show.
Certainly not something like the host mentioning them here. Okay, let's get on to some games that we've been playing. Actually, just very quickly before I get onto that, we do have Super Chat open, so if anybody would like to donate to the show, then that will be appreciated. And we've also got the merch store. Other than that, give us a like on this video as well. But let's get on to some games that we've been playing. I guess the big one, let's get straight into it. So Blood and Truth. This is a PSVR release by Sony London Studios. It's for $40, and it was released this past week, and it's been very much hyped. So this is based on the London Heist experience, which was part of PlayStation VR Worlds at the launch of PSVR, really. And a lot of people were talking about that when that was released back in 2016. A lot of the mainstream games media, IGN and that kind of stuff, would always bring up London Heist, and they would sort of point to this as being one of their standout titles. So it was almost inevitable that there would be some kind of longer experience based on that. But this is really, I mean, they've gone all out with this game and produced I believe, 6-hour long game. I've not finished it. I've got a fair way through. I've played quite a few hours of it, but I've not finished it yet. But yeah, I believe it's around 6 hours long, very polished, very high quality experience, which they've not cut any corners on in terms of the overall production values of this title. But we could get onto the details of that in a moment. So, Steve, I can go over to you first on this. What are your first impressions of Blood and Truth?
I'm not sure what game you're talking about. This week, I played a really cool game called Jason Statham Movie Simulator VR. So I really recommend that one. Jokes aside, this is Jason Statham Movie Simulator VR, all the way down to the to this American, the accent. It maybe those of you in England can pick out the different regions, but to me the accent's even the same. And I think this game is pretty badass. I like it a lot. It's cheesy in a way. Like it's not. It's it's not too realistic, obviously, but it is a James Bondish action, again, like I say, Fast and the Furious, Jason Statham movie, and I love it. Like, it feels like one of those movies in terms of the set pieces and the acting and the scripts and just sort of the over the top ridiculous nature of some of the stuff that you do. Like, in it shows in the trailer, but in one scene you jump out of a window to the building across the street, and amazingly able to catch yourself. And the game does things in slow motion as well. Just like watching a movie. Like, there's a villain in the game. And I don't know how far. I haven't completed the game yet, but there's a villain in the game. And without giving away any spoilers, I'll just say you drive past the villain coming opposite ways on the street, and the villain's in a car and you're in a car, and as you're passing them, it goes into slow-mo, so you can see the villain's facial reactions when he realizes you just drove by, and it's just, all of that is straight out of a sort of a cheesy action movie script, but it's done really well, and it's glorious. Like, just high level, like this is definitely GOTY material for me. Like, I think this game is pretty good.
Yeah, Anthony, you've played this too. So what is your thing? What are your overall impressions of the game anyway?
Yeah, I probably haven't played quite as much as you guys have played. I'm probably like an hour and a half in, maybe 2 hours, but probably less than that. And it's a great game. It's worth the $40. I would say it is the most AAA VR game released this year. I would say that pretty much guaranteed. It's probably one of the 5 or 6 most AAA games available on PlayStation VR in general. I do have some kind of complaints, I might say, about it. I mean, I understand where they're going with this, but like, if I was going to complain about Blood and Truth, the way I would complain about it is I would say, well, is this really a game or is this an experience? Like we did Vader Immortal, everybody got their quest, and Vader Immortal is this amazing experience that has a little bit of interactive stuff, but it's more experience than game. This is more game than experience, but it's a lot of experience. It's a lot of movie. It's a lot of cinematics. I mean, there's a lot, like in the hour and a half or 2 hours I've played, a lot of it has just been watching people talk, like in a movie, and it's great. I mean, the actual human characters that are in this game are up there, like some of the most best human characters we've seen so far in VR. They're right up there with like Olivia from Lone Echo. I might even say some of them look better than Olivia and Lone Echo. Like that main interrogator guy that is like standing over the table, and he's got his shirt's all wrinkled and stuff because he's been there all day, and his pants, and like you get to notice all these different details, and like he's got some sweat on his face a little bit, and he'll like get on the table and get up close to you. And when you guys play this game, I encourage you to like lean in, like look up at his face. The details are pretty incredible. The only thing that holds it back, like somebody will say, no, Olivia looks better. But I honestly think that has more to do with maybe the headset that you're seeing Olivia in compared to PlayStation VR, because like I'm looking at this guy's head and it's like, man, they did such a great job. But I'm looking at his bald head, and like the edges of his bald head have like aliasing and stuff and pixelization. So it kind of like negates it a little bit, where if you saw that on a Valve Index, oh my God, or God forbid, an HP Reverb, right? But it looks really good. The other complaint I have with the game too, and is you kind of go on these Disneyland rides at certain points in the game, or almost Universal Studios rides is what I would consider them like. It's like, have you ever been to Universal Studios either in Florida or in LA? That they have these different rides you can go on where they put you on a tram and you go like down and around, and you're like going to these different movie sets where it's like the tram goes into this little movie set, and they show you a scene where they flood a subway and the waters come rushing in and everything. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit. When you're in this game, you'll be on these like chases or something on foot, and they're doing the movement. You're not doing the movement. So it's like you're running at breakneck speed, and like guys are jumping out from behind walls, and you're like bam, 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 and you're like running along, and then this guy jumps off the building and you shoot him, and it's like you're on a ride, and which is cool, and it's amazing, like the effects that happen, like a helicopter crashes over here, there's an explosion over there, you jump through the window, and they do all of that because if you think about it, how else are you going to get that experience? If you're controlling it yourself, you might be looking down over here behind a wall, and that's right when the helicopter crashed, and so you didn't see it at all. So they've got to control it for you to have this slow-mo movie experience that feels like a Jason Statham movie. And they do a great job of it, but I couldn't help but feel like somebody else is playing this game. I'm not playing it very much. Even when I'm like shooting things, I feel like I'm like, poo, poo, poo. Like, I don't know. I'm shooting. And it's like, I don't know. I still like it. It's a great game. It's pretty much a must buy if you're a PlayStation VR gamer. I know I'm probably coming off negative here. The reason I'm coming off negative is because, look, we all know it's a great game. I don't need to dwell on the positives so much. We know that already. So I'm kind of like focusing. It's almost like Valve Index. It's like the negative aspects are more interesting to me than the positive because the positives are obvious. The one positive thing I will say, though, about Blood and Truth, and it also leads to a negative too, though, is when I first got out, like there's this one point where you first get outside, you're in an alleyway, it's raining, it's nighttime. Oh my God, dude, the world, I'm just looking around at the world that London Studios created, and I'm like, oh, this looks freaking fabulous. And this is running on a freaking PlayStation VR. Like, this is not the highest end thing here. I'm looking around at everything. It's drop dead gorgeous. One cool thing that London Studio did is you can actually turn all the way around, and it doesn't give you the annoying message of turn back and get in front of your camera. Like, it's like London Studio knew you're going to want to examine this world. You're going to want to look around. And so they allow you to do that without the annoying messages. But man, I can't wait till London Studio is let out of jail with PlayStation VR 2. Like when they really have 360, when they really have good controllers, and you can go everywhere and you can explore. I want to look at every nook and cranny, man. I want to explore every little square inch of that alley with the rain coming down and the neon lights and everything. But you're stuck to these nodes. But, you know, it's still great. Awesome game.
Yeah.
I don't know that would make a better... I don't know that would make a better game. And you're talking about comparing the visuals of the actor with Olivia. Last week, you said that the Rift S resolution bump was only a couple hundred lines and that you couldn't see it. It was almost undetectable by the human eye. The difference between the PSVR and the Oculus Rift is only a couple hundred lines of resolution. Just kind of throw that shade back your way on it because I in a little bit of I told you so maybe, but it's like that is a I think the Rift would look better. I would love to see I think your point is correct this week. I was just kind of bringing up last week.
No, I think Anthony, in terms of thinking of this game, it's like almost 50% experience, 50% game. I understand that, and I think that's fair. It's definitely a fair criticism. But anybody that buys this, you need to go into the experience / game knowing that it's that, and I think that's the important thing about it. But it's almost like where the game plays itself for you. I understand that it's difficult, and there's games that like towards the mid 2000s on flat games, they were all going towards this direction where you would introduce quick time events and things like that, where really you're not playing a game, you're just bashing a button when it tells you to bash a button. There's not a lot of skill involved in that, and this sort of edges on that side of gaming far more than anything else. But overall, the experience that it's giving you is pretty incredible. And for me, it comes down to story. I'll say that I think the story in this just grabbed me. And I'm not like a huge fan of British gangster films or anything like that. I've watched them and they're okay. I think they're fine. I don't have anything against them, but they really don't appeal to me where I'd go out of my way to watch them or anything like that. But with this game, it pulls you in because the story at the beginning, you're playing, it's almost like a modern day where like in The Godfather, Michael Corleone in The Godfather, he's like a military person. He doesn't want to get involved in the family business. He's not involved in the criminal side of the family and that kind of stuff. And you play that kind of character in this, and you sort of get sucked into that. You get sucked into the criminal side because of circumstances that take place at the beginning, and that's what grabs me at the beginning of this game. This all takes place, and I think that's the part that really sucks me in and makes me want to keep playing this. So I think the story is great so far. I'm around about, I mean, it's difficult. I've not keeping track of it honestly, but I think I must be around about 4 hours into this game, and I just want to keep playing. This is all I want to play.
Wait. Can I ask you guys, did you guys have a problem with the standing sitting thing? Because like when I first started playing this game, I started off standing, and then there were so many little sitting sequences that I'm like, I need to sit. So then I was doing sitting, but then when I would be sitting, but my guy is standing or running along, I'm like, this isn't right either. So what I ultimately ended up doing is standing and having a chair immediately right behind me. And then when I got into a car, I would just immediately sit down and I would, hold down that thing to center my view and get into the car. But it was kind of like LA Noire for me.
One of the things, yeah.
So what I did was I do both. I play right in front of my chair, and my chair that has the bass shakers and stuff on it. And I started off going like you, back and forth, just in the middle of playing. I'm like, oh, now I'm driving a car. I'm going to sit down and hit the recenter button. I started finding myself staying in the seat because of the bass shakers and the explosions and the gun pops and that, like, I found that actually in a weird way more immersive to have that tactile feedback superseded standing for me in a game where you don't really turn, you're not moving your body any damn way. Gary or Anthony, both of you, did you play? Well, I know you did, Gary, because you're further than me. But the casino level in the beginning, when you come up to the DJ booth,
Yeah.
like I don't. I guess you make what you want of it, but it's pretty early on, so I don't think it's spoilers necessarily. But you come up to, and they show it in the trailer, but you come up to the DJ booth, and I literally had one hand on the turntable scratching, and it makes the scratch sounds to the music, while the other hand holding a submachine gun shooting bad guys on the other side of the casino ballroom thing. That was so cool. Like, there's not a lot of games, like, immersion is different for different folks. Like Anthony, you talk about in Main Fan as well, like having to turn with your bodies and you want to stand, and that has been like your definition of immersion. And I just want to throw out there's other types. Like for me, immersion is when I just get lost in a game and I am not thinking about my mechanics. Whether it be a sitting game and I have to think about my mechanics, or a standing game and I have to think about the mechanics. If I have to think about what's not real, then it's immersion breaking. And a game like this with the inferior PlayStation VR tracking, and I started playing it seating, I found myself more immersed than a lower quality standing room scale game. That's very interesting, and I think developers have to figure that out and define what does immersion really mean, or maybe what does immersion mean for most people.
If I was to play this game on like the Rift or the Vive or something like that, I'd play it standing and then I'd sit down. With this one, for some reason, because again, it comes down to controls, PSVR, I really wasn't actually looking forward to Blood and Truth to the amount that a lot of people were, because I hate the Move controllers. I just hate them. So I thought with this one, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to play with a stool in front of my camera. I'm going to sit down and play so I know where the camera is facing me and play with the Move controllers. And I'm having a flawless experience with that. I'm playing seated, but with the Move controllers. And I could just face forward. And this is part of the reason why I think I've sort of taken to this game, whereas other PSVR games, I don't take to them, because I try to get that extra immersion of standing and I always veer off. I always get occlusion on the controllers and it always gets in the way of my enjoyment. It's just frustrating. So I think, honestly, from now on, I'm just going to sit down and face the forward-facing camera on PSVR and play any Move controller game that way, because that works. It really works for this game.
I'm hoping they in the options in a future patch, you can turn off the auto crouch. Because like when you're trying to play standing up, and as soon as you get to like a what do you call it, cover, you get to like a barrel or something, you automatically go into the auto crouch. And when I was sitting down playing, it was so weird to me to be sitting in a chair, yet I'm crouching behind this big giant crate. And it's like I'm sitting at a table, I'm sipping coffee, and I'm having a crumpet, and I'm in the middle of a fight with these guys where I should be like standing up, ducking down, but it's like I'm sitting in a nice chair enjoying it just seemed weird to me. I couldn't do it. I don't know why.
Yeah, and I understand that, but the just the enjoyment of playing this game. You see, I think you have to take steps. You just have to have like a almost like a spectrum of either enjoying the game in the way it was designed to be made and trying to get immersed in the game. And I want to be immersed in games, but at the same time, blood and truth, I'd rather just enjoy that game for the way it was meant to be enjoyed, rather than trying to feel immersed in that world, because it's not really trying to do that. It's very linear. It's trying to take you through this story. And that's the way I play this game, and I'm having a fantastic experience doing it that way. Okay, well, we can get on to the next game now. I'll skip one and we'll come back to it, but let's go over to Freediver Triton Down, which was released by Archaeact. It's on Steam and it's just for $9 or £6.19. Chris, so, well, I think we've all played this one. Anyway, Chris, we'll go over to you first on this. What did you think of Freediver?
Yeah, so I haven't gotten to play the whole thing. It's a pretty short experience. I'm sure some of you guys have finished it, but it's cool to have like a real diving game in VR where it has that visceral, like, it's all motion controller based. So you kind of, you swim like you would swim in real life to some extent. I mean, it's a little janky, I'll be honest. Like turning is a little weird and things like that. But overall, it's really cool just to have that feeling. And I think, the environments are really awesome. I was in the coral reef and like I've thought, man, I'm really underwater, and it felt great. Of course, the Rift S audio was at 100%. I could barely hear anything, but that's a whole other issue. But no, the game itself, I mean, the environments are amazing.
Sorry,
yeah.
just quickly on that point, because I know this is a very slight tangent, but on the audio of the Rift S, because we didn't mention it, but I think they've pushed an update on that this past week. I've tried it and noticed no difference, and if I have noticed difference, it's actually worse. Did you notice anything like that?
I think there's slightly more bass, but also I think they limited how loud it can get even more, because like I can't hear anything, man. Like it's really rough.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I ordered headphones that are like similar to the CV1 ones, and like there's one guy who used I don't know, he like twisted some wire and stuff so it would fit over the head strap. So that's what I'm gonna do. It was like $17, but I haven't got that yet. But man, like you can't do things on this headset with this audio. It sucks. It's so bad.
It really does. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
Go
you're
back
fine.
to Freediver.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a big problem. But yeah, it's definitely really cool. Like the premise is that you're not like most divers in that you actually just kind of hold your breath. So you have to go up to where there's oxygen a lot. But yeah, you're kind of like superhuman in that way. But I thought it was good. I there's a little bit of jank here and there, but it's a new game, so that's okay. Like in the intro scene, I accidentally grabbed the table and then flung off into the abyss, and it was just pitch black and the character's like a mile away. So just funny things like that. But yeah, it was good. It's a good one. It's the price is right, $8.99. I think that's a good price for a game like this. But I'll let someone else talk about it who's played more of the story.
Yeah, okay. So Steve, let's go over to you. I think you've played a little bit of Freediver 2.
I've completed it. It is a relatively short experience. Chris, I was paying attention to chat, and I may have missed it if you mentioned it, but it is under an hour. I think your playtime will vary depending on the type of gamer you are, but even slow players, I think, will maybe find it hard to get past an hour. That being said, I think it's pretty awesome. Now, I have a natural bias or a tendency to like anything underwater, in part because I love to scuba dive and snorkel in real life, not in VR, but therefore it translates, though I enjoy those things in VR. And this game, in the beginning, you start off where it shows in the trailer, in the beginning of the trailer, you start off in this coral setting, and the character that you are is as the name says, is a free diver. A free diver is just a person that as it free dives. They don't have a scuba tank. They don't take any oxygen down with them. And there are people in real life that can do this stuff. So this isn't far-fetched, unrealistic mumbo jumbo video game crap here. People can really do this. I personally think it's kind of lunacy, though, to go in caves and stuff with no oxygen. But then again, I think it's lunacy to go into a cave with oxygen. But the game doesn't. You don't spend very long in the coral before you're on a ship, and most of the game takes place on the ship. And it is a lot of people kind of compared it in a way to Lone Echo, and I get that, because you're in a semi-weightless locomotion state where you can grab onto the environment and propel yourself. And then, of course, when you're not near any environment, you can just do a swimming motion with your hands, and you'll move forward or turn around. All in all, like, the game again is short, but I really liked it a lot. Like, it's only $8.99 in the US, so its price is cheaper than, say, The Blue, if you're looking for another underwater based experience. But it's something that you can interact with, and as much as I love The Blue, and as much as it may pain me to say this, like, I think if you're going to spend $10 and you want to be underwater, Freediver is a better buy than The Blue. But I heavily recommend both. So yeah, I thought this game was good. It's definitely in the recommend list. And go buy it.
Yeah, so for me, I really liked it too. I've played through it, and yeah, Steve's right. It took me around about 50 minutes, I think, to play through this. But again, it's sort of there's certain parts of it which have set pieces, and there's spectacles here and there as well. And the first part is probably the best looking part of the game, because once you get out that coral reef and then you're in the ship, it looks more subdued, more plain, and that's okay. But I wish I could go back to that original opening part and just have a few like little missions there. That would be great too. The only thing, like, I think the Lone Echo comparison is bound to happen with this, because you can reach out and grab the walls and move along in the same way that you can in Lone Echo. This is the main criticism I have of this game, because it's not done anywhere as well as it is in Lone Echo. I found it to be far more janky than Lone Echo, and I went back into that this past week when I got a couple of weeks ago actually, when I got my Rift S. I was playing Lone Echo in that and just seeing how it compared, and the manipulation of the walls and moving yourself through that world is flawless. It just works. There is no jank to it at all. It is incredible how well they've done that. But with this game, I found myself trying to grip onto a wall or grip onto a surface and often missing it, or there was just a level where you had to grip on it and hold it for a fraction of a second before it would actually acknowledge that you gripped onto the surface. I found that a little bit frustrating. Other than that, there's not too much to complain about for this game. I think the price is really good for what you're getting, the experience that you're getting out of this. 50 minutes for just over £6 of a high quality, polished experience, I think is worth anybody's money. So I really, really enjoyed it too. Anthony, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. It's a solid game, and one of the nice things about it is it does do this underwater mechanic where you're breathing, you're finding air pockets. And we've all seen the Titanic, right? We've seen the movie, and when the water starts filling the room up and there's like a couple inches of space, and you have to like get up to the very little edge there and just breathe a little bit and then dive back in, and you've got your meter on your arm that shows your oxygen, and you've got your little light stick over on your other arm, and you're exploring these levels. It reminded me at times of some of these old Tomb Raider games. I don't know if anybody else got reminded, like sometimes when you were Lara Croft in some of the old Tomb Raider games, there would be some water sequences where you did have to dive down and you had to get to like an underwater cave or something. And the way I remember it, I might be misremembering it, but you had like a certain amount of oxygen when you were like Laura Croft and you're diving down, you're trying to get to an underwater cave. And if you didn't do it absolutely perfectly, you would die. And so you'd have to keep doing it over. You'd have to, like, if you wasted any motion whatsoever, if you accidentally moved that way a little bit too much, you would die. You had to redo it. And I thought this game was going to have those kinds of things. I didn't know that it was so short when I was playing it. And I thought it was going to have some more longer sequences. I also would have liked on it, like, it's funny because like this game, when I'm thinking of it, like it could have been a much better game the way I think about it in my mind. Like I could imagine you going into rooms where there's no water and you're walking around inside a room and then the water starts leaking in and then the water starts rising. And then, you know, I think they could have done a lot of little different things with it that maybe they didn't do, but it's still an enjoyable, fun game. Like if I was going to criticize it though, I would say, here we are again, guys, puzzle game number 27. You know, it's like find a key card. Oh, it's so convenient. Here's a key card. Now it opens this door. Okay, find your axe. That's going to chop the lock that you see repeatedly. There just happens to be an axe in the same room where you need to chop the lock. Power up the generators, which opens that door. You know, we got to start getting beyond this, guys. I mean, I could see there could be some flat gamers that come over to VR. They start playing these games and they're like, this is what you guys are playing, this freaking element. Because I mean, if I really wanted to go hardcore negative, it goes back to the old Doom days, right? Do you remember in or even like Wolfenstein 3D, right? You go back to the old Doom days, you're going through a maze and you flip a switch and then you're out of the game, right? Or you're out of that level. Now you're onto a new level. We're essentially doing the same friggin' thing, but the only thing we're doing differently now is, oh, there's a key card and there's a computer terminal and you're powering up a door. There might be one extra step, but we're essentially doing the same exact thing. But we're so entertained because we see waves of water undulating, you know, and you dive through a certain area. There was one really, really cool moment. It was like Titanic meets Backdraft. Where, and I know you guys remember this moment, you're like diving, I guess maybe I shouldn't spoil it, but you're diving underwater. There's this one little area that isn't on fire and you peek your head open and it's on fire everywhere. And you're like, damn, this is like a movie I just got into. So, I mean, there's some cool parts. It's worth the $9, I think.
No, I think that's, again, I think it's a valid argument to have against the game, but only from a certain angle, like the puzzle thing. Where's Del Wolfenspog? He loves it when I say puzzles, by the way. But yeah, I think the puzzle aspect, there could definitely be more imagination in terms of what you're doing in this underwater world. And I agree, you know, we've been doing this for so long now, and there probably does need to be some things that need to change in the long run. But I just look at it as being like an indie developer that have very limited resources, and what they've achieved here anyway is quite impressive. And I don't know how big this developer is, but I think what they've achieved here is quite impressive, even if they've not sort of knocked it out the park on all angles. And definitely, yeah, I think the gameplay and the puzzles itself could probably use some refinement and some work, definitely.
But doesn't that in a way speak to what I've been harping on the last month or so about content and being king and how VR is still to keep with the water thing in the shallow pool in terms of investment into the breadth and the scope of a title, to not make it just a watered down, God, I'm sticking with that, aren't I? like a watered down, like shallow experience where it's just about the fact that it's in VR and nothing else. Like, and I don't think Archiac did that here. I think they made a compelling experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's not Breath of the Wild deep. And that's okay. It's only $9, and I think they realize that. But very little, if anything, in VR is Zelda Breath of the Wild kind of deep. You know, Fallout, Skyrim, and Elite. You know, there's not a lot, and I think there is that element of exhaustion, and I think I'm feeling it myself in that I'm looking and playing all these VR games, and I'm looking to say, oh, that's really impressive because of the visuals, or that's really impressive and immersive because my hands were able to pull something off of my back. But when you look at it itself, it's, you know, as a game and as a piece of entertainment content, it's a little shallow, and it's that way a lot. And I think, you know, like I mentioned earlier, that immersion is something the developers have to figure out. I think finding ways to bring more compelling content is equally, if not more important. And it doesn't seem to be happening as frequent enough. Here's to No Man's Sky 2019.
Yeah. I do worry. Sometimes I worry about No Man's Sky because I hope people are going into that game with the right attitude as well. Like, it's resource management, and there's a lot of grinding in that game, so you need to grind if you want to play that game. Okay, so let's go back one. Let's go to Five Nights at Freddy's. This is another game that was released this past week. We played it on Steam. I think it's also on PSVR as well. It's by Steel Wall Studios, and it's for $30. Okay, so Five Nights at Freddy's, I've not got too much to say on this one because I went into it and I played a couple of levels, but I knew it wasn't for me. And it's, you know, it's almost like a little escape the room game, at least from the short amount that I've played it. And then while you're doing these puzzles in this room that you're supposed to escape from, you've got these little jump scares that will appear every now and again, and there's various scenarios and various things that you do. Unfortunately, it just didn't appeal to me that much. I didn't want to spend too much time in there. I guess, you know, it's not even, I didn't consider it even that scary, and I'm not, you know, I do get scared in VR, a chair in the room and stuff like that, but this one didn't seem that scary to me. Maybe, you know, I wasn't in the right frame of mind or something. But Steve, I think you've played this too. What did you think of Five Nights at Freddy's VR?
So for anyone that doesn't know, and I'm not an expert on Five Nights at Freddy's, but I know that it had a sort of there about 3-ish years ago, like every kid in the neighborhood was fooling around with Five Nights at Freddy's on computer. I'm thinking the game was able to run in a browser or something. It was really accessible that kids were playing it all over the place. And so it has a bit of a franchise backing that gives it some legs. And from what I understand here, again, I never played the monitor version of Five Nights at Freddy's, but it looks like they brought all three, I think Five Nights at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3, and then also gave it some extra modes. So these are all individual sort of standalone experiences, and in each one you have different nights. So it's not a narrative game where you're going to go in and just, you know, play it from start to finish. You can just kind of jump in any scenario. It's more of a, in a lot of ways, it's similar to Job Simulator. It's not focusing on the job, although a lot of it is sort of job-based interactivity, but it's got this horror skin on it. I thought it was pretty good. Now, I like horror stuff. It does jump scares. It ticks all of those boxes, and it has the just the franchise as a whole. It has the element of it being a children's place. Like these characters were originally for children, and it's almost like a decrepit, demented Chuck E. Cheese place or something like that. And if you have those over in Europe, Gary, I don't know what the equivalent would be of a Chuck E. Cheese over there.
Not got a clue.
But it's like that, but it's gone dark, and these mascot animal creature stuffed bear thingies are evil now, and it's hard to really describe what the franchise is, but think of it in terms of as a VR game. I would say think of it as similar as something like a Job Simulator, but with this horror skin on it. I think it would make really good demo material for the people that think they're tough enough. I want to get some of the neighborhood kids that were really into Five Nights at Freddy's. I want to get them over here and into it here in the next couple of weeks, because they talk a lot of smack, and I would just love to have them go through this. So I do think the price is kind of steep, and I think it's leveraging the the familiarity as a franchise and the popularity of it to command the $29.99 asking price. Like in terms of the game that you get, I would like it better at $19.99. But it's still pretty good. It lives on the horror themes. It has some depth to it. I don't know how long it would take to run through all nights on every scenario. But yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, this game really scares me, and I haven't gotten to try it, but I'll probably nope out of there real quick. That's why I didn't try to rush in for this episode. But yeah, the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is super huge. Like I've even though I haven't played them myself, I've watched like hours of theory videos because there's all these really tiny Easter eggs, and there's like this master story that goes behind it. So it's kind of ridiculous that there's that for this such a stupid tiny game concept. But like, yeah, it's some pretty creepy stuff if you like read into it a lot. So I'm just excited this is in VR. I think this will get a lot of people into VR because this game series has been super popular. So if anything, we can be happy about that. It looks like it was like top selling in the past 2 weeks, beating Beat Saber on Steam. So
yeah, I don't know any of that stuff. So yeah, I'm going into this with completely blank. So that's where my opinions come from. Anthony, I know you tried to play it.
Yeah, I tried to play it and I kept getting like this Unreal Engine fatal error thing. So I got to try to like either re-download it or try to rebuild the files or whatever. But one thing I will say about it is this is a phenomenon that has nothing to do with VR, right? And so there's all these Five Nights at Freddy's fans that have maybe almost zero interest in VR, but because this is the hype, because Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie and all these people are doing videos on it, they're like, oh, Five Nights at Freddy's VR, Five Nights at Freddy's VR. And they're like, okay, I got to find somebody with a VR headset. We got to try this. And so that's cool. It's cool that, all these people are coming in that normally pay no attention. Like we had somebody in chat a little while back that was FNAF Five Nights at Freddy's something, and the person like popped in, stuck his head in our chat for like 2 minutes, and they're like, oh, they're not talking about it yet, and they bounced out. But that's a perfect example of the popularity of this thing. And so you've got people that were never interested in VR that all of a sudden are checking it out and stuff. The one question I do have for like Steve or Gary is, Steel Wool Studios is the developer, like Scott Crowley or whatever is the main guy that invented this whole thing, and he does the games mostly. But he got Steel Wool Studios to basically do the VR version of this game. And these guys have done a number of games. They did a game called Bounce. They did the Horus Legacy or whatever, Betrayal at Calth. Battle for Quar 18 or what they've done like 5 or 6 different VR games. And I'm just curious, do you think there's relatively decent production values? Like it doesn't look incredibly amateur when you're in there? Like, does it seem like it, or, oh, it does look kind of amateur?
No, I'm saying it doesn't.
No,
I think it looked really good. So there's one job where you have to basically rebuild the, it's very simple. I don't make it sound complicated, but it's called Parts and Service, I think is the name of the mini game. But you have to kind of take apart the creatures, and they're animatronic and robotic, and it's like take their eyeball out. It's almost like the what's that game that you would play as a kid? Operation, is that what it was called? Where if you touched the things, you would buzz the red light and you would lose.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like Operation. You have to pull the eyeballs out. But then they mix in the jump scares. But looking at all the parts and the textures of the fur, it all had a realistic, very high quality look to it. It was working my GPU, again, on the Pimax. But that leads me to a glitch. And I don't know if it was just because of the Pimax, if it would do it on the same on the Rift. But in the main sort of Five Nights at Freddy's main series, where you're in the room and you can control the video feed and you got to shut the doors. When I would turn on the camera feed, my I started to get inconsistent frame rate. Like it wasn't just dropping down into reprojection. It would be at 90 frames. And then it would do this weird stutter for about a second and then go back to 90 frames. And it kind of made it a little unplayable in that sense. But I think that's more of a Pimax issue, because I'm sure that they didn't optimize this game for the Pimax. Why would they? And so I don't know if anybody else experienced that. I'd be interested to know if it's just my end. But outside of that, yeah, the production quality is really high. Like it's definitely on the, I don't know if I'd say the upper echelon of all VR, but I would say it looks good and it has development chops.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we can get on to a Quest title now. So Sports Scramble, Chris, I think you've played some of this this past week, as have I. And I, this is one that I was looking forward to, because when I first picked up the Quest and I played the demo of it, I was really actually quite impressed with Sports Scramble, just more in terms of how it looked than anything else. I thought it looked great in the Quest, and it was one of the first games that I went into, so I was looking forward to play the full game. But let's go over to you first. What did you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Sports Scramble might have some of the best cartoony graphics on Quest. Like just all the animations and the bright colors. It's not like Journey of the Gods where it's like dull colors. Like this is full on taking advantage of the OLED and the bright colors. And I think they do such a good job of making all the actions feel good, even if, there's no way I'm hitting these balls this accurately or anything, or bowling this well. So I kind of feel like superhuman in a way, like I'm better than I actually am in real life, which is fun. It's cool to have a game like that. I mean, it's definitely a game you toss on for 15 minutes and have a match and then do something else. But I like to have a game like that, and I think it fills that little niche for me, because I haven't had a game that really lets me just lets me pop in for a few minutes, and I can easily pass this to anybody and they'll instantly know what to do. It's kind of like Beat Saber in that way, but maybe even easier than that, because people have played tennis forever, they've played bowling forever. And the scramble aspect is really fun. Like, your racket turns into a fish, and then the ball is a fish, and then you have like a bonus because they're both fish or whatever. It's cool. And I still want to do this. I think this is a game that screams like playing it outside, playing it in like the biggest play space possible, because then I see people record videos of this and they're running all over the place to actually hit the ball because it scales to your play space. So that's something I'm really excited for, and that's like another reason why I really wanted to get it. But the bowling's fun too, and so's the baseball modes. So all of the modes are really, really polished. Like, we've played another baseball game called Home Plate Baseball. I mean, I feel like this is just a next level of, VR, and it feels so good. It's definitely Wii Sports in VR, but there's nothing wrong with that. And I love that it's multiplayer. Just no one is going to buy it because it's pretty expensive. I think it's worth it. I really do.
Yeah, I think honestly it's probably not quite worth it for me, but I think it's not far off. It's not like extortionate, and they're not trying to really rip people off or anything like that. I think it's a really good game, and I've only played the tennis part and then the bowling part of the game, because the tutorials go on for a really long time. If you play through all the tutorials, it takes you like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to play through the tutorials, and then you get into the game. At least I found that. But yeah, so I played the tennis and then the bowling. I've not done the baseball yet, but what's there is really good, and it's really interesting. I do like the scramble aspect of it. So you're right, Chris, where you get the bonuses. If like for bowling, for example, you get the different bowling balls that you can bowl down, but also the alley itself will rotate and change. So if you match up the bowling ball, the basketball, for example, with the basketball alley, then you'll get bonuses for doing that kind of stuff, as well as getting the strike. And all of that stuff is really interesting. Part of me, I don't know if there is an option in this where you can just play a normal game of tennis or a normal game of bowling, because I would love that too. I think that would make it like the Wii Sports kind of thing, because a lot of people won't want that extra aspect to the game, maybe. I don't know, but I would like that. But overall, what's that? I think it's great. Anthony, you've played this too, haven't you?
Yeah, I played it and I really like it. I like this game, and you know what? When I first played it, I didn't do any of the tutorials. I just went into quick play, and I was like, okay, let me do the tennis. I've already played the tennis, but so I did the tennis, I did the bowling, I did the baseball, and I just kind of went quickly into all of them. And I think my first reaction, like I did a show and I was saying, you know what, this game is absolutely worth $20. I don't think it's worth 30. But you know what? The more I play this game, I've now started doing the tutorials. And when you do the tutorials, like Gary was saying, you go through all these different scenarios. Then when you're done with the tutorials, they also have these challenge modes that you can go in. So there's the tutorials, there's the quick play, the actual gameplay, and then there's the challenge modes. And then also, like I did bowling, right? And so bowling, you do the tutorials, quick play, and then once you're done with the challenge modes, if you get through all the challenge modes, it basically gives you a bowling edit mode where you can choose any lane, any ball, and so you can practice any of the bowling lanes with any ball, which I thought was super awesome because I think the bowling is the best aspect of this game. I love it when they change the lanes. Like there's one lane that is like Space Invaders, and it's like you're playing Space Invaders as you're bowling. There's another one where it's like the old football game from this American football from the 70s, where they would have these like football fields that were magnetic, and it would be like zzz, and you'd have these little football guys that would just move around. Like we used to play with that, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did a little lane that's like this old American football game from like the 70s and 80s. And it's just the nostalgia fact. I think they did a really good job, man, with the bowling. Like I really like the bowling. The baseball, honestly, I have to go back into the baseball and go through the tutorials and go through the challenge modes, because when I was playing baseball, I didn't know what I was doing. I just went into quick play, and I was just throwing regular baseballs, and I wasn't throwing fish or basketballs or anything. I don't know what I didn't learn the actual controls there. But the more I play this, the more I'm starting to think, maybe this actually was worth 30. The one thing that does suck, though, I've tried to go into multiplayer. The couple of times I did, nobody in there. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah. Just to mention as well, Brandon in chat did confirm that you can turn off the scramble aspect of the game as well. So you can play it in normal mode, which is really cool. Thank you to the super chatters as well that have contributed to this episode. That we have had a couple down there too. Okay, so we've got a couple down here, a couple of other games, but I want to leave, we've got 3D Sen VR, which is the NES emulator, which can convert old NES games and sort of make them 3D. But I'd like to talk about that next week if possible, because I've not spent too much time with it. But does anybody want to mention, because we've got a little bit of a backlog of games down here. So if anybody wants to do a quick talk about any of these, then go ahead. Steve, is there anything down here that you can see at all?
At the moment, no. I think.
Did we talk about Attack of the Bugs one time?
Not yet. No. And we probably should, because this was gifted to us by VR Spry Guy a while ago now, and we've all played it. So thank you to VR Spry Guy for donating this. But go ahead, Anthony. What did you think?
Well, I'll just say, the game is better than I thought it was going to be. It's pretty fun. You're just in this room, but you get these endless streams of bugs and you're shooting them. It's very simplistic, but it's very cheap, right? I'm trying to remember. I don't remember a ton about it. I think I did maybe a quick little let's play of it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, when he donated this to us, he did say he wanted you to specifically play it because of the spiders and things like that were coming towards you. You're not a big fan of spiders.
yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, so it's only it's only $8, and it's basically like a wave-based thing where there's bugs crawling out of your nooks and crannies of your walls, and I hate bugs. So I was like, oh my God, this is pretty scary. But yeah, it's a basic game. It's a fun game. You get little upgrades. You get little things you throw out onto the field to distract the bugs and things like that. So I maybe buy this if you have friends who are scared of bugs and you want to have some sort of fun experience with that. I think that's probably the best use case for buying this. Yeah.
Steve, what did you think?
I thought it's a wave shooter. I thought it was pretty good. This is a 2016 game. It's one of those games that I think in 2016 would have been far more impressive because it's in VR and you're like, oh, it's amazing. I'm shooting these spiders. so it holds a little less as good now here in 2019. But it was still, like Anthony said, it was more enjoyable than I was expecting. And I think it is because of the sort of strategic element of it. It isn't just stand in one spot and just shoot kind of endlessly to survive the waves. You have limited supplies and you spend resources to get different units, whether it be bug spray, different or different little army men that can kind of go out and shoot as well. So it was better than I expected, but it's definitely has that 2016, 2017 early VR days feel to it. But nevertheless, much thanks to VR Spry Guy for sending it our way so that we could check it out.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I guess that can be pretty much it for this week. Has anybody got any closing thoughts?
Just real quick, I just wanted to mention there's a game called Space Ops VR that also came out this week, and I think it's on sale for about $11.25 if it's still on sale. I know it like launched on sale, and I just want to say that's not a bad game. I kind of like it. It's this kind of game where if you just want to like, it's an action Jackson kind of game. You have a gun. There's weird bugs. Shoot the bugs. When you're going through these different stages, and it's kind of like a co-op game where you're racing against another team. I mostly played it single player, but I liked it. And I was like thinking, would I rather play Freediver or would I rather play Space Ops VR? And I think I actually like Space Ops VR more, but I just wanted to mention it because it's kind of flying under the radar.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's been episode 125 of VR Roundtable. Thank you for joining us. It's been a little bit of a shorter episode this week, but let us know in comments which kind of length episode do you guys prefer? Would you prefer to have like an hour and a half, 2 hours? How long would you like us to go on for? Because we can sort of balance things out and save things for week on week and that kind of stuff. Generally, there'll always be weeks where basically we can't shut up. We think that we're going to have a short episode and we just keep going on, and we could easily do that too. So let us know, what do you prefer? But thank you to everybody joining us in chat this week. Thank you for the super chats too. That's very much appreciated. And I guess we'll see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.